Hey, beloved, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. I hope you are doing well. I am ready tonight for you. I want to say welcome to the Man Cave. Man, we're going to do some things tonight. But thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you as always, and I'm glad that you are with me. And it is always my desire to make you the absolute smartest person in the room as it pertains to these topics that we cover. Are you ready tonight? Are you ready tonight? We're going to do some very, very special digging. You can't unhear what we're about to talk about once we get through it. But we're going to do our regular foundational stuff because I want to make sure that you are very clear why we are here and what we are doing. All right. Some 70% of young black men and women, because they have no apologetic, they are leaving the church when they turn 18. Now, they may not be on today. Corvette clock's a little off tonight. Anyway, they may not be on listening today, or maybe in the future. But the point is the picture that's under me, that we learn and we turn and teach them. Yes, we are talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict for sure. And this is our third message. We didn't get past all of that last week. But it's the Black biblical history piece that is crucial for what it is we're trying to do, so that we can teach young black men and women what the truth is, so they can be free. They've got enough challenges that are going on. Always enough challenges going on. What we want to do is we want to help. We want to give them information that they can use. All right. Now, I want to remind you that at the time of this recording, that this information is on the radio as well. So there's different places you can pick this up. This is our 12th year on the air. Excited about, 12 years. As of December 31st, 12 years. 12 years of sharing the gospel. It's 12 years of digging and researching and bringing information to you. And I'm just blessed to have the opportunity to keep this thing going. All right. So let's cover some of the information that we were trying to get done last week, but I just couldn't finish. And I don't even know what made me think I could, right? Because there's just so much, and there's Things, because this is a lot of this, even though we're doing historical pieces, because a lot of this is in real time, you got to put those pieces in, and it just takes some time to do that. So, let's do a recap. Let's work on our stuff here. All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I talked about it on all 3 videos. You can also find this information on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get 150 subscribers, additional subscribers, by the end of this month. Okay, so who are the Ashkenaz? The Ashkenazi Jews. Who are they? That's the topic that we have been working with. Taking a look at. Well, let's just dive right in. I don't want to. Taking a look at Scripture. Genesis chapter 10, verse 3 takes care of it. Verse 3 says, and the sons of Gomer. Gomer is Japheth's son. Then you have the word there, Ashkenaz. And someone just responded in a comment to me, thanking me for, putting these things together, saying he'd never heard the Jeremiah 51:27 verse where it specifically mentions people that are living in the north. I'm not going to go back over that tonight, but we can locate where they were, not just show in Scripture that they are not in Shem's line at all. We can locate them in Scripture, that they're coming down from the north to deal with Israel and Israel's sin. And so it's important for us to get that so that we're very, very clear. You see Shem's line there. You see Ham's line and Japheth's. Shem is where we get the word Semite. They're not Semites. They're not connected to Shem. They're not in that bloodline. Now, as I've said before and had to admit, my goodness, this has been in front of me all these years and I didn't even catch it. Now, Shem and Ham will mix. And it's important for us to understand that everybody on the earth during this time was black. It is not like that first picture there of Japheth, Ham, and Shem, right? That's what we've been taught. One is white, one is black, and the other one is kind of an Arab, I don't know, some people call it olive color or whatever. That's not the way it was. It's that bottom picture. They were all black. Eventually, there is an adaptation in our bodies that created a lighter skin color. But that's not where we started. This picture, 2 of them, first man in Europe. There's actually a video for that first picture. The original Europeans were black. So were the original Romans and Greeks, but that's a story for another time. I got other videos on YouTube that talk about that. But the first man in Europe was a black man. When they find bones, and that'll hold true for the other things that I'm going to show you, other illustrations. Again, we're doing a recap. I talked about this in more detail in the last video. When they find old skeletons, old bones, and we have the ability now to reconstruct these people, when they do that, the DNA proves that they had black features and black skin. The picture that's on the right, that's Cheddar Man, Great Britain, in that area. Cheddar didn't have anything to do with, they're not calling him Cheddar Man because it has something to do with cheese. But as you take a look at that picture, you begin to see the adaptation. I'm going to give you some information at the end that has research that has been done. Sometimes they were just trying to find out, when did man develop the ability to digest milk? And as they did that, they discovered, tracing them back to mitochondrial Eve, to Africa, to the black man, right? If you lived in the north, you couldn't digest, you weren't getting vitamin D from the sun. Most people on the planet, seriously, I think it's 75 or 80% in Africa, Asia, places like that. There are places like Japan. There are people that have never had milk at all other than breast milk. They're lactose intolerant. So research was being done to discover, why were people, white-skinned people in the North, why were they able to do that? Less sun, bodies had to adapt. And that's just skimming the surface on that. But anyway, that's what was going on there. Okay, let's move on. I love this one because of the location. This is Sungur Man. Sungur Man is in 40 miles outside of Moscow. They dig them up. These people, a lot of their folks that were buried had a lot to do with, burials with beads and things like that. And Sungur Man, when they reconstructed him, now these are bones as far back as they're able to go. It's a black man. Okay, so when I make the statement that, I said this last week, I'm trying not to get caught up again. If white men were first, white-skinned people were first, there would be no black people. We wouldn't even exist. Because two white people can't make somebody black, but a black person can make somebody light or white. Two white people can make a black child, and I've gone over this in some other videos talking about black origins. If they have a recessive gene, granddad or great-granddad, okay? Without that, it is not possible. Now, white people have melanin, and I used to think that white-skinned people didn't have it. But no, beloved, they have it. Their bodies don't release it. So if the black man wasn't first, the black man wouldn't exist. You understand? That's why when they go to these various places, China, right, in Asia, Asia Minor, Gog Magog, so Russia, as I just showed you, Ukraine, this is Grimaldi Man from the Ukrainian area. They reconstructed him and he's a black man. All right? Very important that you get that. Matter of fact, I did this last time. Whoops, that's the wrong move. Just a second. Yeah, I wanted you to get a good look at that. At the bones. Okay? So, leaping way ahead, let's talk about people that lived at the time of Jesus very quickly. Proto-Afro-Asiatic, not just Afro-Asiatic. We've seen many pictures of these folks, and, they're going to have that Arab look. But the Proto-Afro-Asiatic, the people that were first, DNA has proved they were black-skinned, brown-skinned like me people. And I showed you evidence from Josephus and other things, writings from that time explaining that that's what those people look like. So in Jerusalem, at the time that Jesus is born, surrounded, other than the Romans, by black-skinned people. And so we are blessed that the Bible and science are in agreement. Used to be a time that we didn't see it that way, but because it wasn't. But it's in agreement. So we have to understand that picture. Cesar Borgia is believed to be, from the Borgia family, is believed to be the person that his father, Pope Alexander VI, commissioned to be drawn by Michelangelo as Jesus. But this is what he looked like. All right? It's the best I can do right now for a recap. I know if this is fresh to you, it can be a little tricky. But now we got to move on to some of the new stuff, because otherwise I will never get there. All of this is connected to the conflict. It's not a side note. It is the stealing and the suppressing of the knowledge of Al-Kebulan, which was the original name for Africa. It's the suppressing of that, of those stories, of that information, controlling the narrative so that you don't know the truth. You don't know the connections. All right, so let's dig a little deeper. There are, and as you will see, here's the meat of this today. African tribes, some DNA tested, that prove, like the Limba, not only do they have the specific Y chromosome that connects them to the Hebrew family, but there are many of them that have the specific gene trait, DNA, that connects them to the Levitical priesthood. I got to let that sink in now. This is a video documentary that you can watch on how these Nigerians are saying that as colonization comes to an end, that we're going to go back to our original religion. Who evangelized them? Where'd that come from? Where'd the knowledge come from? Where did it come from? That they're saying they're returning to something. Let's watch this video, short, and then we will talk on the other side.
Well, I'm Tudor Parfitt from Florida International University. We've just got back from a trip to Papua New Guinea visiting a Judaizing tribe called the Gogodala. The research that I've been doing on the Gogodala feeds into work I've been doing for many, many years on similar Jewish movements or Judaizing movements throughout the world. It was really a pretty surreal trip from the moment that we arrived in Port Moresby. There was singing songs and waving banners of welcome, and this kind of extraordinary image pursued us throughout the whole trip. So we took an army plane a couple of days later, which took us right into the middle of the western jungle of the western province in Papua New Guinea, and the same thing happened. The army plane dropped us in the middle of a vast field, and immediately there were hundreds of people with banners and Israeli flags and yarmulkes and so on. But this was in the middle of the jungle, in one of the most remote and primitive places on the face of the earth. This is not the only group that thinks that they're lost tribes of Israel. It's a kind of it's a phenomenon in the area, and according to my own research, my own theory, it's a global phenomenon. So, and I very much hope that they will be able to receive some kind of sustenance from the links that they may create with other groups, such as the Igbo in Nigeria or the Lemba in Zimbabwe, many other groups throughout the world who believe themselves to be Israelites and who are still somewhere between Judaism and Christianity, but who call themselves Israelites. They believe themselves to be Israelites. So the Gogodala really are the same phenomenon.
are in this remote area. Many of the people that they've run into, as he explained. What's the connection? How did they get connected to the Hebrew family? The picture on the far right there, piece of wood. The Limba tribe declares that is a piece of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, we may never know whether or not that is true, but one thing we do know for sure, and that is that fragment has been tested, carbon dated, and it dates back to that period of time. And the question that I keep asking is, why do they have it? DNA is showing that they are connected to the Hebrew family. DNA is showing that many of them are connected to the Levitical priesthood. And now they have this fragment in addition to that, and they are saying that it's a part of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, if you have followed me, you know that I'm not going to say anything definitive unless there's something definitive. But my question is still the same. If it can be carbon dated back to that period of time, then why do they have it, and why don't the Ashkenaz have it? How'd they pick it up? I'm just asking. The pictures you see there are the Falasha Jews, or Beta Israel is used for their name. They are the Ethiopian Jews that have claimed Jewish heritage and have made requests to move back to Israel. There's about 150,000 of them currently living in Israel, and they don't get, there's a color hierarchy. The Zionists, which are the Ashkenazi, are at the top. You got your Sephardic Jews and all of that. As you keep moving down in color, that depends on where you're going to live and how you're going to be treated. And they don't get the best of jobs. They don't live in the best of neighborhoods. And there aren't the same laws that we have here. So you can be beat up by the police or the military. Now, I've seen some of them within the Israeli military. But black folks have fought in the military right in the middle of Jim Crow. We've fought for our country. And they've done the same thing. Anyway, I'm about to show you something, and I guess it's kind of, I don't know. You'll see why I'm pausing and hesitant here. And I'm going to show you this 3 times. You deserve to see it. You deserve to know the truth. Israel admits Ethiopian Jewish immigrants were given birth control shots. So in order to come in this country, you have to have shots. But they didn't tell them what the shots were for. Why? Because they did not want the Ethiopian, the Falasha, the Beta Jewish population, they did not want it to grow. So they were basically preventing the Ethiopian women from getting pregnant and raising the population. Oh, there's so much nefarious stuff. I don't have time to get into it. I'd end up making 8 of these. just talking about the atrocities that have been committed. One of the reasons I'm showing you this is just like I showed you, well, we'll talk about it in just a second. This stuff has been going on, this arrogance has been going on for a long time. Same thing, repeating it. Health Ministry Director General, Professor Ron Gamzu, acknowledged the practice without directly conceding coercion, was involved in a letter to Israel's health maintenance organization instructing gynecologists in the HMOs not to renew prescriptions to Depo-Provera for women of Ethiopian origin, if any of what's going on? For reasons that their concern that they might not understand the ramifications of the treatment. I don't know what just happened to me, but it happened. Same thing, direct quote, not to renew prescriptions of Depo-Provera for women of Ethiopian origin, if for any reason they're concerned that they might not understand the ramifications of the treatment. This is what they did to these precious people, and this is all the way up to 2015. Because there is an arrogance that is attached to their behavior. And they think, and this is getting ready to be super important, that there are people that are less than. This is Theodore Herzl, who is the founder of Zionism, who proposed the whole Israel finding a land for themselves. I explained to you what happened. Plan of partition, 1946. They try to come, 100,000 of them. They get sent away. Great Britain is running that area, Jerusalem, and America only took in 5% of refugees, and so did Great Britain. And America says, hey, you got to take them in. Because there were 1 million displaced after World War II. These precious people their towns were decimated. 6 million of them had been killed. But in 1947, they start moving towards Jerusalem, moving into Israel. The problem is there were 750,000 Palestinians living there. Now, the example that I gave last time was for those of us in Cincinnati, or if you are watching this and you live in a city that has a loop that encircles your city. In Cincinnati, it's 275. Imagine everybody within that circle gets pushed out of their homes, businesses taken away from them, and then they take away, they take everything away from you. They're mass murdering. There is mass murdering that's going on. And they start changing the names of streets and redrawing maps and all of that kind of stuff. And this part of the history, May 1948, the Nakba is what it's called by the Palestinians, which is the catastrophe. And as I showed you last week, there are current Ashkenazi leaders that are calling for a second Nakba. Another leader is saying that all of Palestine is responsible for what happened on October the 7th. Now, let me get back to that in just a second. So 750,000 people are displaced. Refugee camps and land taken away from them. And I showed you some pictures. It created an apartheid situation that has been just devastating for these folks. And there have been attempts peace accords between Israel and Egypt, which is being strained right now. I'll get to that in a second. The Oslo peace accords between the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Army, and Israel. And Israel kept taking, see, when things were settled in 1948 and Israel became a nation, they were not limited in how much of the Palestinian land they could take. And so they've continued to take pieces of the land. They have continued to create propaganda that treats these people like dogs, 4 checkpoints just to go to work. You know, you have to watch Arab television sometimes to see the films. You know, I've used this illustration before. When you watch a football game, when there's a fight, normally it's the second person that the referees will see, and that's who gets flagged. And what ends up on the news very often is the effect, not the cause. 19-year-old guys throwing Molotov cocktails and rocks down the street. And it look, they just, the statement will be they just hate us. But if you watch the full story, you find out that one of them was killed for no reason. There are people that they're asking to be freed from prisons now. Some of them were women and children. What did a child do? For no reason. As of last week, I told you that 25,700 people, Palestinians, have been killed, and I looked up and saw that number some believe is around 30,000. Well, the Hamas army is only 30,000 people. Bombing and killing because these people, to them, have no value. Their lives have no value. I was watching this video where this guy, he was an Australian, and he was filming. This guy was getting off the bus from work, wanting to walk 20 feet into his house, and they wouldn't let him do it. And so they're interviewing people. The guy is interviewing people, Ashkenaz, on the street. And they're interviewing, saying, you know, why can't this man walk to his house? And they're saying he's a terrorist. Just automatically. Didn't know him, didn't know what the situation was, but because he was Palestinian, he had to be a terrorist. And when you have a generation that has been taught to look at these people as less than, it's really easy to kill them. As Mark Lamont Hill says, this did not come out of nowhere. They tried to protest. There were peaceful protests. People are walking unarmed, and snipers were shooting them. Hamas didn't come out of nowhere. What they did was ugly and wrong, but it didn't come out of nowhere. They tried to tell the world how they were being treated. They tried to march peacefully, to do. We had a reporter that was just killed about a year ago, I think it was, right? First, they want to say that Hamas did it. Then they finally admit that they did it and then say there's going to be an investigation. We don't ever know what comes out of that, and it happens all the time. As a matter of fact, from October 7th until the time of this recording, which is February, there are more reporters that have been killed during this conflict because of indiscriminate bombing in this short period of time that have been killed all year long. And they are approaching the numbers that will break a record. Because it is genocide. All right, let's watch this and we'll talk on the other side.
Thank you, President. I voted against this motion after a week of horror in Gaza and the EU diving in head first, draping our parliament in the Israeli flag, aiding and abetting in war crimes, including the bombing of a hospital, and still we find it impossible to say that Palestinian lives matter. We're still privileging one category of victims over another. We talk about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, but why is there a humanitarian crisis? Is it a natural disaster? Who cut off the water, fuel and electricity? Are we not sure? Who is bombing Palestinian civilians? Do we not know? Do you think we could mention it? There is a crime unfolding in Gaza now, such as we have not seen since the 1940s, and we are in it up to our necks. We're watching Israel murder Palestinian civilians and preparing to drive millions of them into the Sinai Desert to annex and colonise their land. It's another Nakba. It's a crime against humanity, not a humanitarian crisis. The EU will never live down this shame. Long live Palestine, long live Gaza.
Imagine in whatever city that you live in, that your hospitals are being bombed because they say Hamas might be in the basement. So it doesn't matter who's there for therapy, babies that are being born, people there for cancer treatment, pre and post surgery. None of that matters. If somebody's in the basement, which we don't know. No, this is genocide, folks. This is genocide. This is genocide. I'm going to show you where it's coming from in just a moment. But a part of the problem is we've been on board with it until, when we still are, but weren't even calling for any kind of real ceasefire until what you just saw, people in Finland and other places like that. There is an international outcry because these are war crimes. And what is amazing to me is that the Ashkenazi, the Zionists, actually believed, with the hatred in their heart, that the rest of the world would see it like they see it. Benjamin Netanyahu ran his campaign declaring there will be no two-state solution. Then what happens to the people that are living in Gaza? What happens to them? Are you ready? Are you ready for me to tell you what this is really all about? 1963, there is a proposal to have the David Ben Gurion Canal. Egypt has a canal, the Suez Canal. And the Suez Canal, for years, Egypt gets all of that money built on sand. But in order to compete, France, Great Britain, and the United States are in bed with Israel to build the Ben Gurion Canal. They now have the ability to do that. And the video I'm going to show you will bring all this out because they've got to nuke it in order to make it happen. But it runs right through northern Gaza. Oh, follow the money. Follow the money. Let me let this short video speak to this.
I just watched something that answers every question about why America, the UK, and France are so staunchly in support of Israel and what it's doing right now. And of course, it has to do with money, obviously. But not what we would have thought of. I think we all would have assumed it was oil. Turns out it's not. Turns out this is what it's all about. This is the Suez Canal. This is owned by Egypt. The Suez Canal makes about $9 billion a year. And where does that $9 billion go to? It goes to Egypt. Egypt nationalized the canal, so it makes all the profit. So who's not collecting on this are the Americans, the British, and the French, and the Israelis. They want to change that. Enter the Ben Gurion Canal Project over here. This is what's happening right now in the Middle East. What we're seeing on TV is all a ploy. It's all about granting access for this canal. The American and Israeli government plan on nuking this land over here to build a canal. They're going to use this land because that land is built out of a rocky terrain, whereas the Suez Canal is built on more of a sandy terrain. By digging through a rockier ground, they would have more likelihood to have a wider canal, allowing two ships to pass each other at the same time, as opposed to one ship, which is presently happening in the Suez Canal. And where do you think that canal empties? Not just in the Mediterranean Sea. The Ben Gurion Canal would empty right in northern Gaza. The Ben Gurion Canal would empty into the Mediterranean at the northern point of Gaza. Northern Gaza. So all we're seeing here, ethnic cleansing, genocide, forcing all of the Palestinians into the south of Gaza. It's all to build this canal. I just watched something.
There are evacuation zones where they've already pushed them out of the north. They are in Rafah. See that X marking the spot at the bottom there? That's the border of Egypt. And they have pushed them to that point, originally telling them that that's a safe zone. But it's not a safe zone. It's not a safe zone at all. Because now they're talking about attacking that area. And that's up to date, folks. That's up to date. They're talking about attacking that area. We have to pray, because in this modern era, with all the intelligence that we have, we are watching genocide right before our eyes, because they want that area to build a canal. I've said this before on other videos. Sometimes I have to watch myself. I want to repeat things, and I don't want to assume it's already been said. First of all, there's just no reason for this. But the depth of the hatred is so strong and it's gone on for so long that they actually think this is okay. And we've been okay with it. We've been okay with this, with this mass murdering. Beloved, I'm getting ready to show you a video. I don't want your kids watching what I'm about to show you. They don't need to see this. None of this is for the kiddies. But let me first explain this to you. There have been people that are waving white flags, and they have been shot waving white flags. And it has been so bad that 3 Israelis escaped, thought they were going to be safe, moving towards their own, holding white flags. They killed all 3 of them. White flag is supposed to be the universal symbol of surrender. In this video, there's a longer version of it. In this video, the setup is this. You have a group of people. There's bombing. You'll see the smoke. All they want to do is go back into the village and get their people out that are still trapped where the bombing is going on. And I can't remember if in this shot, I know in the longer version you can see it, there's a tank sitting up on top of a hill. And this is what happens. I warn you, this is graphic.
شيل يا عمي تشحطهوش شيل ده ادخل الاقصى شيل الاقصى تعال جاي ايوه شيل هاتوا على الجنب هاتوا انا يلا شيلوا قتلوا الله يحميهم ورا الدار ورا الدار حسون يلا بس شيل خلوا من ربكم دخل تعال شيل ابوي تعال هنا تعال يا عمي تعال اطبخ عليك تعال.
Thanks for watching.
Here's some of the resources that I talked about. I'll show you these few things. I just want to make sure that they're on film. On the right, well, there's Tudor Parfit. That's another version of his book. I had it. I showed it. It was in that where I showed you that Ark of the Covenant piece. That was a copy of his book. This is the other cover. So if you're looking it up, Journey to the Vanished City. On the right, that's 2 different books, The Lost Jews and Philosophy to Freedom, From Philosophy to Freedom. Okay? This is evil. There's no other way of explaining it. It's a terrible situation. These people are imposters. Now, I'm not talking about going out and hurting anybody or anything like that. I'm not denying that the Holocaust, I keep saying that in every video to make sure that nobody gets to play any of those games. But they have to perpetuate the lie of superiority and that Jesus looked like us in order to treat other people. I mean, it's just, as Jimmy Carter said, it's apartheid. He wrote the book, Peace, Not Apartheid. Here's some resources. You don't need to try to read this right now, but I want to make sure that you can pause this later, looking at the origins of the Chinese and Scientific American, and Cambridge did some work talking about the Sungur that I mentioned, how Europeans got their white skin. That will show you who the original Europeans were. Smithsonian did some great research, right? And how they developed, evolved into lighter skin. As I've mentioned to you before, when the Ashkenaz came to Jerusalem, they immediately went to number 1 in the Middle East, number 5 on the planet in skin cancer. Why? Because it's not where they're from. It's not enough time for this adapting to occur. It's not where they're from. It's not where they're from. And they're still number 15 on the planet, and they were number 5 in 2000. This isn't some old story. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Have to keep perpetuating the lie. I gotta go. I'm Pastor Jackie Jackson. I want to thank you so much for joining me and being with me on a part of this very crucial series. I pray that you would get this information, learn it, go back over it and over again until you understand it and can palatably explain this to other people in a way that they will get it, so we can bring about honest change. Pray for the conflict in Israel and in Palestine. Pray for peace. Pray for the women and children and innocents that are dying in this situation for no reason. God bless you, beloved. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.